Hello, everyone. Today we'll learn about the opinion that began in the 13th century by the Rishon called Maharam of Rothenburg. That's actually his nickname. Maharam stands for Morenu Harav Meir, and he tried to escape Germany but was imprisoned because a Jew that was baptized to, I think, Catholicism recognized him, and he sat in jail until the day he died. They wanted 23,000 marks for his release, or silver marks, and he refused to have that because he did not want to encourage people capturing other Jews and asking for such a high ransom. And so 14 years after he died in prison, one of the Jewish people redeemed his bones and he was properly buried. But that's just a very important note about his history because he was recognized as what's called Rabban Shekol Bnei Agola, the rabbi of all the people in the exile. And so a lot of his decisions were very powerful, and until today, we follow a lot of those suggestions and laws. So, in the opinion of Maharam of Rothenburg, while reciting Kriyat Shema and its brachot, one may not interrupt to respond to Kaddish and Kedusha. So, Kaddish and Kedusha both come from the word Kadosh, which is the Parsha, for since he is already engaged in the praise of God, he is prohibited from interrupting to answer another matter of praise. However, according to the majority of the Rishonim, and so just I'll go back for a second, he puts together both the blessings and the Kriyat Shema, and that's because in the Talmud they discussed interruptions during Kriyat Shema, so that's why he put them together. However, according to the majority of the Rishonim, for the sake of great praises recited in the congregation, a person is permitted to interrupt even in the middle of Birkot Kriyat Shema, and that is the halacha as we practice it today. Because Shulchan Aruch was Sephardi rabbi, and since he wrote the code of Jewish law before anybody else did it in the manner that he did, according to our tradition, Rabbi Meir Irslich in Poland was writing at the same time the same work, and then found out that the Shulchan Aruch was being written, so he decided instead of writing a whole book instead of the Ashkenazi minhag, he just wrote these different commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, and they printed them together as what's called Haggah. So when interrupting, one may only respond to most important parts of prayer. In Kaddish, there are those who say that he may only answer Yehi Shmei Rabban Mevarach La'olam, and may his great name be blessed forever and ever. Likewise, he answers Amen after the Amran Ba'alma Ve'imul Amen, the last paragraph of the main part of Kaddish, which is the conclusion of the main part of the Kaddish and what we call the half Kaddish, which is going to repeat again a few times. Others say that he may answer all five amens that one normally answers in the main part of the Kaddish. So for Ashkenazim, there's actually only four, and one is called Brichu, that's how we respond, which is called the half Kaddish, and we talked about that earlier when we discussed that between each part there's a half Kaddish, and also before Mincha and Musaf. However, the ensuing additions are not considered to be the essence of the Kaddish. So in Kaddish Titkabal, we add one more verse that is basically asking Hashem to accept our prayers. And then there's also what's called the Mourner's Kaddish, which is only the last two lines, Yehi Shlama and Useh Shalom. And he may not interrupt to answer Amen after those verses because that's this opinion. Second opinion is concerning the Kedusha. In Kedusha, he may only answer by reciting the verses Kadosh and Baruch, the essence of the responses to Kedusha, because those are the two prophets and also written in the prophets, Isaiah and Ezekiel. The third one, there are those who say that he may also respond to the verse Imloch Hashem Elohim Tzilon Dor Vador, which is from Tehillim. And so that's why some people consider it different because it doesn't have the same level of Kedusha when we discuss, comparing the writings of the Tanakh, of the part of the Tanakh, the last part, as opposed to the Nevi'im, the prophets. And that is the widespread custom to also answer Yimloch. However, he must refrain from reciting the introductory words that the Chazan says before every verse. So there's many, many different nusachim. We talked about that a little bit when we talked about nusach. So I'll just give the most obvious example. In Musaf of Shabbat, the Ashkenazi custom is to say Nakdishach Naritzach, to the introduction to the Kedusha. And in the Sephard and Sephardi is Keter Yitnu Lecha. So we actually have two verses that are not from the Torah. They're just a combination of words that are very important. But I think the Ashkenazi custom just wanted to shorten, so that way, if somebody had to answer and they were saying something else at the same time, they shouldn't do that. Third is about Baruch Hu, which we talked about yesterday. You may also respond to Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem, Baruch V'olam Ba'ed, and at Modim in the Amida repetition, he bows down and answers only the first three words, Modim Anachnu Lach, we thank you, and nothing more. According to the Ashkenazic minhag, one may answer Amen to the brachot Hakel Kadosh and Shema Tfilah, which conclude the brachot of praise and the brachot of request. So the third blessing and the 16th blessing. According to the Sephardic minhag, the law regarding those particular brachot is similar to other brachot, and one does not respond to them. So if you're saying the Shema, or you're saying the blessings before the Shema, and somebody makes a blessing on an apple, for example, next to you, I don't know how. No, that's really not common. But I sat next to somebody at 4:30 in the morning. It was a Vasik in Israel, and we were all shaking from cold because the synagogue wasn't warm enough. And this guy decided to make tea, and during the Shema we heard. So when he made the blessing, Shakol Mi'avid Varo, none of us answered Amen because we're not supposed to interrupt it during the Birkot Kriyat Shema. And I don't know how he did it or whatever, but maybe he was just taking his time. So concerning this law, there is no difference between being in the middle of brachot or or a paragraph of Shema and being between brachot or paragraphs. So that rule we'll discuss further when we talk about the actual paragraphs, and so this is the comparison that the Talmud makes. And last but not least, all answers are permitted only in the middle of the brachot or after their conclusion. However, once a person says Baruch Atah Hashem at the end of a blessing, and there are only remaining a few words to conclude the blessing, he may not interrupt at all during the actual blessing. Similarly, what's called the Chatima in Hebrew. Similarly, when reciting the verses Shema Yisrael and Baruch Hashem Kavod Malchuto Olam Ba'ed, in which one accepts upon himself the yoke of heaven, one may not interrupt for anything, for the ruling regarding them is like that of the Amida, which we do not interrupt at all. In any case of uncertainty, it is best not to answer, for according to many poskim, even if it is permissible to answer, there is no obligation to respond. So in the comments here, he discusses something that the Talmud discusses, which is, let's say that you're in actual danger, meaning you see that there's a Roman soldier and he's taking out his sword because you're not responding to his words, and of course you have to stop because that's called pikuach nefesh. And so we even break Shabbat for pikuach nefesh, and it's a mitzvah to break Shabbat for pikuach nefesh. So just to make that stipulation clear. And as it's been our usual custom for Friday to talk about the parsha, I'm always amazed that the parsha talks about kedoshim, about being holy, and we just discussed answering matters of sanctity and holiness. And the main message of Kedoshim is, even though some of the commandments are relating to our relationship between us and God, most of the commandments in this parsha are relating to our interpersonal relationships. And that's where we really have to show Kedusha. That's where we really have to show our sanctity by being a mensch and being a good person and relating to our fellow human being in the proper and respectful way. And that's really the call to be Kedoshim. And Ramban says it a little bit differently, but I think that for our generation, I think that that's the most appropriate explanation, that we be holy in all of our manners and in all of our behaviors, and that's how we become a holy nation. So we'll stop there, and we'll wish everybody good Shabbos.